Frankly, I think the information that's on the record now and the admissions by the president and the transcript or the report of the telephone call wasn't a full transcript that was given to us by the White House, as well as other corroborating witnesses that are just sort of coming forward every day. There's enough information right now, in my view. Now, this is a serious time. Nobody ought to be happy in America about this happening. Our founding fathers established this process, very frankly, for exactly this purpose. Not necessarily a criminal activity when they call high crime and misdemeanor, but for abuse of power. When you read the scholars talking about what the impeachment process is all about, it's really about dealing with abuse of power. Our founding fathers were afraid of a king or a dictator going wild and doing things contrary to the Constitution, contrary to our laws. And very frankly, we have delayed, as you know, proceeding with an impeachment inquiry for a long time because we believe it is a serious matter, not to be taken lightly. But in light of the facts that we are confronted with now, our responsibility and indeed our duty is to proceed, and we will proceed where the facts lead us. But as I said, in my view, right now, on the admissions of the president as to the fact that he tried to influence a foreign government to interfere in our election process, puts at stake the integrity of our elections and our national security.
It truly does.
That in and of itself would warrant looking carefully at whether impeachment should follow. The answer to that question is yes, but it is not a quick process. Obviously, the executive can act quickly and can refuse quickly. And the Congress, essentially, we have no army, we have no police force, although we have the Capitol Police Force for protection of visitors and members and the Capitol structure itself. But the fact of the matter is the Congress can and should, that's the important, and should ensure that it is the co-equal branch of government, and this is very important, it is the policy-making branch of government, not the president. The president is an executive. He is to execute the laws that are passed by the Congress of the United States. But the founding fathers surely had in mind, by making the Congress the Article I agency of the government, while co-equal, it was the first among branches because it sets the policy. And then the expectation is the president would carry that out. And as I want to repeat, the founding fathers were very concerned about the usurpation of the people's power by a president who would see himself or herself as a king or queen or dictator. Let's pray that the people and their duly elected representatives have the wisdom and the courage to respond in the face of actions which undermine our democracy, our Constitution, and our Declaration of Independence principles. Let's pray that we have that strength, that courage, that determination. Because if we don't, I agree with your premise, then our democracy could be at risk. We ought not to take for granted that our democracy will always exist in a fair and equal way. It is ours to protect, to be eternally vigilant. For if we do not, other countries, you mentioned in the last century and centuries before that, found the freedom that they had slip away from them because they were not diligent, they were not courageous, they did not confront those who would take power unto themselves unilaterally. I don't know that to be a fact, but I certainly think the implications of much of what he has done are in the interest of Russia and Mr. Putin and not in the interest of the United States of America. In fact, very early on, Mr. McCarthy and I, McCarthy being the Republican leader in the House of Representatives, and I co-sponsored legislation to ensure that the sanctions that were imposed by Congress were in fact implemented by the President, because there was concern that whatever relationship he has with Putin would compromise those sanctions, and that he would not implement them, not assess them. Up until really, frankly, just the last few days, where he said we're going to take all of our troops out of Syria and expose Kurdish troops who have been some of our best allies in fighting ISIS, expose them to attacks by the Turks. He's been roundly criticized by me, by Democrats, but also by many Republicans, that this is a dangerous and irresponsible act for him to take. Now, who benefits by that act? Obviously, Russia, Turkey, led by Mr. Erdogan, who is turning Turkey into a much more authoritarian state, so that from his initial actions on sanctions, his private meeting with Putin, who he told no American what was said, to encouraging the Russians through his people to help him in the 2016 election, to talking to Mr. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, about finding dirt on Biden, his major political opponent, to his actions in Syria just a few days ago, which will benefit Russia. It appears that whatever the relationship between Putin and Trump, and whether or not Putin and Russia have something on the President of the United States, it clearly appears that too often he acts not in the interests of the United States of America, but in the interests of Russia and other autocrats around the world.